All righty. Well, everybody, you saw on my social media, this was an interview that I've been really stoked for. We got Chris Mallee, draft expert on, contributor for Fourth and John. Just super stoked to have him on. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, Jake, I've been really excited about this. Draft week, going to go over all the rounds for the draft, especially hit at home with the 12th pick. Thank you again for having me on today.
No, thank you, man. A guy with your expertise and your knowledge. I mean, just talking a minute ago, leading into this episode, I could tell this is something that is going to give a lot of my listeners just takes and info that they really didn't even know. So I'm stoked, and I think really the most people that are benefiting are the people that are going to be listening. So why don't we just dive right into it, man?
Yeah, so right now the Eagles are sitting at 12. They start off with the 6th pick after tanking that last game of the season. And I've been talking to people even before we moved back, saying like moving back on paper was a really good move for the Eagles because they weren't one player away. However, if that one player was Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, it would have been worth staying at 6'4". That being said, let's see what happens. I mean, this isn't a knock on Jalen Hurts or anything, but I was saying that the Eagles are smart. They're making a safety net for next year if Hurts isn't the guy by having all these picks next year. I mean, they potentially have 3 first-round picks next year, and it's smart, though, because you can say, all right, now we have picks if we need to move up and get another quarterback or potentially trade for a veteran quarterback, or if Hurts does work out, as is easily the best scenario for everything, they can get some key blue chip affordable, talented guys in the first round next year because the edge rushers, the receivers, and the cornerbacks are loaded in next year's class. Quarterback, not as much. That's why there's a lot of speculation, even today, that the Eagles could potentially still want a quarterback in this draft. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I'm hoping at this point, after all the drama and the dust settles, that they're going to give full confidence to Jalen Hurts that it's his job to lose. Just last week, it wasn't apparent when you had Nick Sirianni saying he wouldn't commit to Jalen Hurts as a starter, and it's going to be a competition. And it's one of those things, it's like, yeah, you like that, but at the same time, like, after everything that's happened already, it's like, dude, just say that he's the guy. Like, and if you happen to draft a quarterback, then you can say he was the guy until this happened, and the value was there to take someone. The big thing is, like, when we had Carson Wentz, we never really got that, like, alpha guy. I mean, Zach Ertz had an unbelievable career here. You don't win a Super Bowl without him, but there's a difference from a guy like Zach Ertz and then Aaron Rodgers having a guy like Devontae Adams. And not saying that you need to get a guy like Devontae Adams because he's one of one, but the Eagles really need to get Jalen Hurts, either like a guy he can go to, like a Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, or the system that Sirianni is going to bring here and Streichen's going to bring here allows him to utilize all these different weapons because Dallas Goedert's been very good, but he's been a little injured and he hasn't really stepped up or proven that he's better than Zach Ertz just yet. And then you really don't know exactly how they're going to use Jalen Reagor. I think he's going to have a way better season than last year, especially when he's going to be given the ball in space, hopefully, because Jalen won a lot of routes last year, and Hurts or Wentz couldn't get him the ball, or B, it just was a complete like cluster, like a mess the way like everything went. I mean, Fulgham was on fire. You benched him for Alshon because of money. It wasn't because of play. Greg Ward, he's very solid, fan favorite guy, but he is what he is. Like, you can improve there. And when you look at it, we were talking about this before the show even started. There's been a lot of speculation, like, what do you do at 12? Let's say Smith, Waddle, Surtain, and J.C. Horn are all there. What would you want? You and I were both talking, saying, like, it's really, like, yes, you want the flashiness. You want one of those wide receivers, but what this team really needs, even with having a very solid cornerback in Darius Slay, you need another star cornerback. You don't need a CB2 later in the draft. You need a CB1B because Darius Slay is not getting any younger. He might not even be here next year or the year after. And then just look at the NFC East and then look at the other wide receivers coming in here. Like, in the NFC East alone, you have Kenny Golladay, you have Sterling Shepard, you have Amari Cooper, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have Michael Gallup, you have Terry McLaurin, you have Curtis Samuel, and, like, the list goes on. And then you have Tyreek Hill coming in, Julio Jones coming in, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen. Like, we go through the gauntlet, and even if the Eagles aren't projected to be a very good team, you just want to have stability at the defensive back position for once. I mean, it's been years since we've had two really good corners, let alone one really good corner.
Yeah.
And if you can groom, let's say, Horn behind Slay and just put him in the action right away, it would be perfect. I mean, just from you, like, who are you interested at 12?
No, like we talked about before we started this, I'm definitely on the defensive side of the ball in the first round. I think Sirianni, give him the chance to show that he is that wide receiver developer and let him see what he can do with the guys in house. I'm not even opposed to getting the guy in the second round, but get that cornerback in the first round. And I was always pretty vocal about being a Surtain guy. But after hearing what you had to say, and I'd love for you to share that again about your thoughts between the big two of Horn and Surtain. But I was always a big Surtain guy. I thought he has that star quality to him. But I agree. I'm tired of seeing Avonte Maddox on the outside. He is not an outside cornerback. He's not he's a okay slot corner, but we really do need that true, CB1 to develop in the wings behind Slay, because I don't really see Slay here past maybe the following season. Like, he'll be here next year and maybe the year after, but he's not going to be here after that, I don't think.
Yeah, the big thing at 12 is, I was saying, like, if we move back from 6 to 12, you recoup some more draft capital. That 4th round pick is huge. That was a round that I was dying to get a pick from, because we didn't have a pick because of the Jernard Avery trade, and I was just dying to get a 4th round pick, because that's the meat and potatoes of building exactly, like a young, cost-effective, and just like super talented team. Like, that's where you're going to get your studs at that you can afford to pay and are really talented as well. But looking at 12, I was so sold on Patrick Surtain. I was like, this is the guy, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, bloodline, his dad and his family, like, and a bunch of NFL guys, like, they know exactly how to groom this kid, and they've been doing it forever. Him and Tyson Campbell were both star players in high school together. Campbell plays for Georgia. And then I really broke down the film, because I had Surtain, Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech, and then J.C. Horn, 1, 2, 3. And then slowly Farley went into 2, Horn went to 3, and Surtain was still at 1. And then, like, what I do is I spend a bunch of time just breaking down all the film. I was working the Senior Bowl. I was talking to different people down there, and I was having different conversations. And then I was talking to Eric Crocker, who does the Crocker Report stuff, and he kept on putting stuff up about Surtain. And I said, all right, like, I have to go take another look. And then I was like, I'm not going to look at the good plays that Surtain made. I'm just going to watch full game tape. And when I went back and I watched the Auburn game when he's going against Seth Williams, it was bad. I mean, Surtain is a guy that, in my opinion, he is 100% NFL starter. He's a guy that will play in the league for 8 to 10 years, have a solid career. He has a really high floor, but that ceiling is really low. The thing with Surtain is he's very smart. He plays really well in the system. He is a great tackler. The one thing he's really bad at, he is very slow to get his hips and his head around. The thing with Surtain is Seth Williams for Auburn is not a fast wide receiver. Surtain was chasing him most of the game, and other than a couple drop balls and bad throws, Surtain would have let up a monster game to Seth Williams. And it wasn't even that. I was just watching a bunch of different games where teams were actually attacking Surtain, and he had as soon as he got pressed, he had no idea what to do. And it was kind of disheartening, because, like, this is a guy that I'm like, wow, like, he kind of got all these stats, and it was mostly because A, people were scared to throw at him because of the name, B, bad quarterback play, and C, receivers were just like, they were not confident in themselves to go against a guy that was just like the bona fide number 1 corner in the country. But going back, like, J.C. Horn, if you watch him versus Seth Williams, that was the game that I was like, okay, like, J.C. Horn is like the real deal, because he bullied him that whole game. And I was watching all this film, and J.C. Horn, he might not be the cleanest tackler. People say he gets handsy. So does Patrick Surtain. but J.C. Horn is the ultimate competitor. I mean, there's a reason why Jalen Ramsey, the best corner in football, has taken J.C. Horn under his wing. He told him, he said, you have the skills, and the big thing is you had the mentality. The reason why I like J.C. Horn in Philadelphia is you see what's happening with Jalen Reagor right now on social media with the fans. And not to say J.C. Horn might not chirp back at the fans a little bit, but like he gets it. He's super confident in himself, and every step of the way he's proved it himself right. I mean, this is a guy who only let up 8 receptions on 239 coverage snaps, and he only let up 1 receiver to have over 50 yards last year, and that was Devonta Smith. And I don't know why reporters were saying like J.C. Horn got put in a blender. Rewatch the game. He let up 3 receptions, and the one was a slant route where the safety ran into him and allowed Smith to go for a touchdown. And it's Devonta Smith. The dude won the Heisman. Yeah. He's arguably the best wide receiver in the draft. Like J.C. Horn, if you really go watch everything he does, I mean, he's about 6'1", 205, runs a 4.38 40, and the dude just gets it. I mean, he would be an immediate starter for the Eagles and a guy that you have no problems with leaving on an island with some of these receivers that we have to play next year. And then he might even be better than Slade next year. Like, I'm really confident that J.C. Horn is going to be a really good NFL player, and I'd love for him to be here. I'm hoping he gets by Dallas.
No, that's like I said, I was always just kind of that take everybody's word for it. You type in certain highlights on YouTube and you see all the good plays, but diving into whole game tapes and looking at certain shortcomings, it sounds like he was just kind of a benefactor of a good system, good over the top help with some nice safeties over there, and that Horn is truly the better, just like man-to-man corner, which, like we said just a couple minutes ago, is something that we've greatly lacked here in Philadelphia. So that would be incredible. I'm all about getting a cornerback round 1. And like I touched on earlier, if you want to take a Cadarius Tony, a Rashad Bateman, a Terrace Marshall, any of those, bigger names at the possible end of day 1, beginning of day 2 guys, I'm not upset about that. But I'm with you 100%. Take defense, specifically secondary, in round 1. And from what you've said, I'm all about Horn now. I never thought he was bad, but I was right there with you with Surtain, Farley, then Horn. And I still think Caleb Farley, if these injuries aren't crazy serious, has potential to be even the second best corner in this draft. If he's healthy, he shows that he just has some intangibles. I'll say all the time, especially with when you just listed some of the measurables of J.C. Horn, you can't teach size and you can't teach speed. And this guy's running a 4.38 at 6'1", got good hips, great. He tracks the ball down real well. And, you have somebody over the top to help you with the tackling. You can get over somebody that's not the best fundamental tackler as long as they're sticking on their guy and making every catch tough.
Yeah, it's never an effort thing with J.C. Horn with tackling. It's just a little bit of form tackling, stuff like that. But, I mean, he's a guy that's never going to give up on his team or give up on a play, and that's exactly what you need in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
The big thing, though, is, like, you hear – a lot of the rumors, like, are they going to take a tackle or are they going to take an edge rusher and all that stuff? I mean, I get it value-wise at 12. Like, if you're getting like a guy like Rashawn Slater at 12, it's a big value. That being said, it's like, what are you going to do with Mailata? What are you going to do with Dillard? Yeah. Like, because the one thing that I've been critical about the Eagles, and people can have their opinion on Jalen Reagor, but at least he was a pick that was slated to start right away. The problem with the Eagles the last couple years with drafting is they haven't been drafting for guys that they see as starters. It's guys that they want to like develop or something like that. It's like, even some of the best players, it's like, let's take Dallas Goedert, even though we have Zach Ertz. Let's take Andre Dillard, even though we have Peters and we have Mailata. It's like, let's take Derek Barnett, even though we have Brandon Graham, Chris Long. Like, even Chris Long talked about that. Like, people were texting him during the draft, like, yo, like, what's going on? Like, are you not going to play? Like, you're not starting anymore? And, like, even though Jalen – and even last year, like, you take Jalen Hurts when you have Carson Wentz. Like, we do that a lot. Like, there's a difference when you take a Jack Driscoll and you take, like, a Kayvon Wallace back then. Like, at those spots in like the 4th round and later.
Oh,
Like, okay, I get that. These are guys that have fallen this far for a reason. Let them develop behind Rodney McLeod. Let them develop behind Lane Johnson,
Yep.
Brandon Brooks. Like, that's awesome. And those are guys like Driscoll looked awesome last year, in my opinion. Like, that's where the value is. But you can't do that in the 1st and 2nd round.
No.
And that's why we're at where we're at. Like, one of the things, like, people are like, oh, like, Howard Roseman, like, he got us a Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, I really appreciate that. But, like, we really wasted the 3 years after that because of the draft, because of off-season decisions. Because the big thing is, like, we've been terrible in the draft since the Super Bowl. And before the Super Bowl, we didn't even do that well.
No.
I mean, just look at who's left on this team from the last couple of drafts, and like the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside thing and the Davion Taylor picks, like those were like the pick that killed me. And I was in the link when we were drafting Clayton Thorson. Like, that was one of those picks where I was just like, what are we doing? And people are like, oh, like, it's just like a backup quarterback. I'm like, no, like, you could potentially be getting like a starter or a very high developmental guy. Like Thorson wasn't even good in college. That's why like a pick like that blows my mind. And the annoying thing is that a guy like Gardner Minshew goes right after him. And Gardner Minshew, is he the best? No, but he's a very serviceable backup. And what if like it's just all the hypotheticals? Like, if we had Gardner Minshew and we felt the need not to get Jalen Hurts, like, what would have happened? Like, if we had him to go in the Seattle game when Wentz went out with a concussion from Clowney, like, there's just so many questions like with the draft. But this year we have 11 picks and we got to hit on them.
Yeah, no, have to. And I'm glad you brought up guys specifically Jack Driscoll and Kayvon Wallace. We didn't see a ton from Kayvon on the field last year. I'm hoping that, Jonathan Gannon, being that secondary developer, the guy that's, been known to really get the most out of these guys, can do something with Kayvon. Because looking at his plays in college and all, and even a few plays here and there last year when he was on the field, I think he has a lot of the intangibles that if you can develop him into an NFL player, can be a good guy. But specifically Jack Driscoll, I mean, of last year's draft picks, I think he was one of the best guys specifically to contribute in his first year. And, like you said, we're drafting guys that are not at necessarily a huge position of need, hoping that, as the position gets older, then boom, they can be right there ready to go. But you get those guys, like you said, in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. You don't take those guys in day 1 or 2. But it seems, and like you said, the 4th round pick that we got from that trade from 6 to 12 is something I've said many times was completely overlooked. That's 33 spaces we jumped there. That's a big jump. And if you look at the draft history with the Eagles, no, it's not very good, but we've had pretty good success in that 4th round of getting guys that make impact plays for us. So I was a huge fan of getting to that, 123rd pick, and specifically in this draft, there's a lot of talent that you're going to see taken out of those 4th and 5th rounds. And I'm glad that we have a 4th round pick that we didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a lot of people about this at Senior Bowl and beyond. This is going to be the year, especially because of COVID, that guys are going to get overdrafted. People are going to get underdrafted. They were just announcing today that some people can't even get their medicals. So a guy like Prince Tega Wannago, who I really am upset that we ended up letting him go because he got stolen off our practice squad. He had a medical red flag right before the draft, and that's how we got him so late. He's a left tackle for Auburn who only let up 1 sack in, I think, 2 seasons. Like, that's what you can find. Like, and for us, like, the reason why I'm not dying to get a wide receiver in the 1st round, if it's not Jamar Chase or potentially Devonta Smith or Waddle, it's like you can get a lot of talent later. I mean, look at the NFL Pro Bowlers from last year who are 1st rounders at cornerback compared to all the receivers. None of them were 1st rounders. No. Stephon Diggs, 5th round pick. Like, you look at the cornerbacks, they're all 1st round picks. It's like Stephon Gilmore, Tre'Davious White, Jalen Ramsey. Like, all these guys are 1st round picks at corner because it's really hard to develop a corner compared to developing a wide receiver or being able to use a wide receiver's strengths just from your system alone. And wide receiver, it's really tough. Like, I'm mentioning Jalen Reagor again. I mean, he had the worst circumstance. Like some of it's on him, obviously, but like you come to a team where you're expecting to have way better quarterback play than you had at TCU, which was awful. Wentz has his worst season. Doug Peterson has his worst season play calling, and it was like ineptitude all over the place. Like they weren't using him in space. They weren't trying to help him at all. He was injured. And then you have Justin Jefferson, the guy who I did as an LSU fan, I didn't think that he was even going to make it to pick 21. The guy who goes right after you is forever going to be linked to you if you're Jalen Reagor. Yeah. And of course, he has the perfect storm to do well compared to Jalen Reagor having the perfect storm to fail, because Justin Jefferson, he's an amazing talent. He's one of my favorite players from LSU. He had Dalvin Cook to take a huge chunk of the defense's gaze off of him. Then Adam Thielen, I know he's not like the hot name. He's an awesome player. I mean, Adam Thielen takes the number one corner and the safety, and then Justin Jefferson is all over the field, and what does he do? He gets open, he catches the ball, and then he's pretty good after the catch as well. I mean, that's the problem, though. Like, I'm really hoping that whatever wide receiver, because we're definitely going to take one at some point, I'm hoping that the wide receivers that we bring in, plus the guys that we have already, are just put to their strengths. I mean,
exactly.
I believe that this coaching staff has done it in the past. Now they just have to do it again. I mean, you were here. I was listening to them talk about Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, like how they were utilizing them to their strengths the last couple of years when they were coaching them. And I'm like, if you can do that with the guys we have now, perfect. You like, not saying it wouldn't be great to have Jamar Chase, but maybe not being able to afford a Jamar Chase compared to being able to get J.C. Horn. And then in my latest mock draft, I had us getting Nico Collins in the third round. He could go really anywhere, to be honest. Like, I could see him going mid to late in the second. I'm hoping he makes it to our third round pick, but like, that's the type of guy that you end up getting later in the draft, and then he ends up being a star. I mean, Gabriel Davis was a guy in last year's draft that fell way too far, and then Josh Allen was throwing him the ball like crazy in the back end of the season. I mean, Donovan People-Jones from Michigan, he came up big for Cleveland, and just like Nico Collins, he was suffering from Shea Patterson and the quarterback play at Michigan. Yeah. And then, like, Nico Collins, he's like in the 90th percentile on every single thing. 4.4 speed, he's 6'4", 225. Like, he's a beast, and he's exactly what you look for in an X receiver. But he reminds me of Allen Robinson if he was just a little bit faster. And like, if Allen Robinson was faster, Nico Collins blows him out of the water with getaway speed. And I think he would be like an awesome guy to add to the system. I mean, we were talking about saying like you get a Cadarius Tony, Marshall in the second round. It is a huge cloud of smoke as to which receivers in the second tier are going to slide, because you have Elijah Moore, Kadarius Tony, Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall, and potentially Diami Brown from North Carolina. Like, all those guys, they could go anywhere from 16 to 37 to us. Like, it's there's that much smoke. And it's because of COVID, because some of these guys opted out. You don't know what they are. Were they one-year wonders? Like, who were they versing? Were like the defenders that they were going against not good because the opt-out guys weren't playing and they were better. So the big thing is that you can get guys all across the draft, but then you have to make sure that their culture fits, that they're mentally going to be prepared for the NFL and all that stuff. I mean, two guys that I interviewed during the offseason, Austin Watkins and DJ Daniel, those are two guys I would go to bat for and say, draft them, because both guys went to JUCOs, they went to military schools, and when you listen to them, they're like, listen, like, the NFL is not going to be anything new to me. Like, my life's regimented. Like, I've been through everything just to get my dream here, and once I get here, I'm going to keep going. And they're guys that were highly productive. I mean, Austin Watkins was a monster in college, and he just was like a smaller name. He's actually Sammy Watkins' cousin. Wow. And then DJ Daniel is a guy that could go anywhere from the fourth round to undrafted. It's one of those things. He was a second-round pick in Matt Miller's mock draft last year, and then he got hurt in the summer, and then he was playing on and off for Georgia this year. If you go back the last 2 years and watch any cornerback play Jamar Chase, no one played Jamar Chase better than him. Jamar Chase had one of the worst games I've ever seen an LSU receiver have against DJ Daniel. And DJ Daniels told me, he said, the first play, I said I wanted to go against Jamar Chase one-on-one. Everyone was talking about him being the best player in the country. First play, he's like, I grabbed him at the line of scrimmage just to feel his weight and his power, and I already knew that it was over for the rest of the game. And I was like, Jesus, like that's a lot of confidence. Then I watched and I saw the game, and I'm like, Jamar Chase did nothing. He caught like 2 slant routes on DJ Daniel, and that's about it.
Jeez.
And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, like he goes, I don't know where I'm going to go in the draft. He's like, I might go in the 4th. I might go undrafted. He goes, but we're going to see what happens. The next week after I talked to him, he got voted the best defensive back at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, there's so much value all over the place. And with 11 picks, they're probably going to do some moving up, moving down. But I'm really hoping that they find some of these gems here. I mean, there's so many guys that would be immediate starters because it stinks. Like you like guys like Greg Ward and stuff like that, but if you can stack players behind them that are going to be better and have more potential, just do it. You can't be worried about hurting feelings, and that's how you get stuck where we're stuck now.
No, I was just looking at my phone, and in my first mock draft, I didn't put him on there, but I actually saw that he was voted as the number 1 D back, and I had him on my list in that I had him in the 5th round area. I ended up having the Eagles before they had that 4th round pick. I put a mock draft out. I had him taking Ramondre Stevenson as like a nice power back, but he's a name that I think would be an incredible fit. The guy just shows so much effort out on the field. And like you were saying with J.C. Horn, guys that just won't give up on a play, won't give up on a team, are somebody that's going to succeed in Philadelphia. Like specifically, I mean, any city is going to say that, but this city just embraces people that leave it all out on the field. I mean, regardless of him being a Hall of Famer or not, Brian Dawkins was a fan favorite first and foremost because he was a guy that you knew was on empty at the end of the game. Like he left everything on the field. So you get guys with that fight in them, that dog in them, they're going to be fan favorites here. And so it's awesome to hear you talk a little more in depth about some later round guys. And that kind of takes me into we kind of covered day 1 pretty good, but we can just go into day 2. Of those names that you mentioned with Cadarius Tony, Marshall, Bateman, Elijah Moore, all them, what are your thoughts of a day 2 wide receiver, or do you have a different position that you'd like for them to address in the 2nd and 3rd rounds? And if so, who do you like there?
Yeah, it all depends on who they take in the 1st. So hypothetically, let's say they go J.C. Horn in the 1st round.
Hey,
they're good. Yeah, they're good for corner for a little while. I mean, a lot of people were saying double dip and get Asante Samuel Jr. and J.C. Horn. Like they've been saying that for a couple of weeks. That's one of those things where it's like, okay, like, but then your 2nd round pick, what is he going to be, like a slot corner? Because he's not going to start over Slay. So it's not a wasted pick, obviously, but can you afford to do that? I don't think you can because we need help at the edge. You could potentially get another, like I would think it would be more important to get another edge rusher or guard or tackle in the 2nd round rather than another cornerback. Yeah, corner is really important. Do you know if Slay's going to stay healthy all year? But that's one of those things. Like if you're spending a number 1 1st round pick on J.C. Horn, like I would love to get Asante Samuel Jr. or one of these guys in the 2nd, but like it's not the best way to allocate your value there. And I think that like we talked about Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall.
Real quick, Tony. Do you think there's any shot of Greg Newsome falling to day 2? He's a guy that I've been really high on when he was originally slated as a day 2 guy. Now he's really climbed his way into middle to late 1st round guy. What is your expert opinion? Do you think there's a chance that he would be there day 2 if they don't go Horn day 1?
I don't think he's going to be there. I think they could potentially move up, but I've even seen Newsome go as high as like 13 to 18 right now. Wow. The thing is, people realize that cornerbacks are a premium, and I think Horn and Surtain are both going to be gone in the top 15. So a guy like Newsome is going to have to be, I think he'll probably be the next guy off the board. If not Farley. It really comes down to how medicals clear out Farley, because Farley is an amazing talent, but people don't want to get Sidney Jones by him, and that's like, and that's really the big issue with him. But going into like the second round, like Newsome, like if you went like Devonta Smith and then Newsome, yeah, like that's a home run, 2 blue chip players. But if you go from Horn to, let's say, Terrace Marshall, I'm a huge fan of his. I know his wide receivers coach. The reason why he's been dropping out of the first round is health issues. People are worried about certain health issues, but I think he's pretty medically cleared. So it's weird though, because people were talking about like, what if Rashad Bateman falls to 37? He really shouldn't. And I was alluding to it earlier, saying those wide receivers in tier 2, no one, like even NFL teams, could not tell you where these guys are going to go right now, because it's really who flinches first when it comes to the tier 2 wide receivers. Exactly. There's going to be a run at them because people love Elijah Moore. People love Kadarius Tony. People love Marshall. People love Bateman. And some people even love Diami Brown in the back of the first, early second. It's just whenever it starts. But like hypothetically, like a wide receiver in the second would be awesome. In my latest mock draft, I had them getting Nico Collins in the third instead of getting someone in the second, because it just felt so like Howie Roseman to take an edge rusher in the second round, because some people even thought that they might take Kwity Paye at 12, which would be a massive mistake. I like Kwity Paye, but I don't think he should go anywhere earlier than like the 20s maybe.
No, I'm with you. I don't dislike him as a player, but I'm not a fan of at that spot.
It's just
I think so many people are like, oh, stay away from Kwity Paye. I'm like, not necessarily, but just at 12, yes. But I don't think he's a bad player. And like you listen to 94.1, and they're all saying like, oh, he'll take Kwity Paye. I'm like, that wouldn't be the worst case scenario if they were to trade back. But I'm with you. I don't think at 12. And then I did have I had a listener ask me to ask you specifically about Rondell Moore. What your thoughts are on him? I've seen him everywhere from first to third, but he's extremely high on him. But he wanted me to ask your opinion on him, having a much higher knowledge base.
So, I mean, dude, as early as like a year ago, people were talking about Rondell Moore as like a top 15 pick. He was the guy that was like the Brandon Cooks hybrid, like Percy Harvin. Like he came in as a rookie at Purdue and just lit the world on fire. But since then, he's been injured every year. People don't exactly know how he's going to be used. I mean, the way I would describe him as he's a better Laviska Shenault, and he's like the guy that like was an absolute monster in college football, but had the injuries. Same thing with Laviska. I mean, but if you get to the right team, the right fit, and a competent coaching staff and medical staff that can take care of your previous injuries to avoid further new ones and can deploy you the right way. I mean, Laviska Shenault quietly had a really nice year in Jacksonville. And I think Rondell Moore can do the same. Like, let's say Rondell Moore ends up in like Kansas City. Yeah, like that would be an awesome spot for him. Here, I think he'd be solid, but I would not take him earlier than I'd take Elijah Moore before him. And it's not I really like Rondell Moore, but like, dude, people are talking about Elijah Moore in the first round right now. It's all over the place because he is an elite route runner. What does he do? He gets open and he is great with the ball in his hands. He's just really raw. And the same can kind of be said about Kadarius Tony. That being said, Kadarius Tony is one of the best catchers in the draft. He had zero, maybe one drop in all of last year in the SEC. And Bateman, he's a guy whose stock is all over the place. I mean, it's the one thing that's tough with Bateman was like he was like opted out, opted in, then opted back out, and he looked pretty good last year. Nothing incredible. But it's a weird spot because do you want to take a guy like Elijah Moore at 37, or do you want to wait a little bit and then get like an Amari Rodgers in the fourth round? And Amari Rodgers is he's an amazing talent from Clemson, and he's a guy that was incredible in college, incredible at the Senior Bowl. His dad was the legendary T. Martin, who got drafted ahead of Tom Brady back in the day, and he just looks really good. He looks like a guy that is going to be a really solid slot receiver like Elijah Moore, and it all comes down to value and how people stack up their boards. I mean, it's tough because we're talking about day 2 guys, and look at last year. Like I was begging for us to draft Jeremy Chin before Jalen Hurts got selected. Like, that was the guy. I'm like, if you take him, like, that's the closest thing that we're going to have to Brian Dawkins. Like, he would have been a perfect replacement for Malcolm Jenkins. And we passed up on him. Yeah, I'm happy that we have Jalen Hurts now, but like, Jeremy Chin was just like a lights out pick for me right there. Yeah. Like, he's a guy that could have went in the first round. He fell to the second round. What did he do last year? Dominated. I think he probably should have been the defensive player of the year over Chase Young. And if you watch what he did, I think he set a record. He scored 2 touchdowns in 15 seconds. It was
incredible.
It was 2 scooping scores, and I'm like, that's what that guy does. Like, he's just like a game changer. He's like a Tyrann Mathieu, where like the dude's all over the place. He has no health issues, and it's really tough because, like, look at this year's safety class. I mean,
it's
we haven't even mentioned safeties. It's not that there's nobody.
No high people. Yeah,
it's so many. Like, there's the floors and the ceiling of these guys are all over the place. Because like Richie Grant is like an awesome player, but like no one wants to take him in the first round. Do you have Trevor Morey from TCU, who's potentially a first round pick? But like, there's no guys like there was last year where like you're talking about Jeremy Chin, you're talking about Antoine Winfield, and like even those guys fell into the second round. Like, it's almost like people are almost evaluating safeties and running backs right now, but all those guys are super talented. Like, I had the Eagles taking Hamza Nasirildeen from Florida State in the 4th round in my mock draft. I'm like, dude, that would be a lights out pick because you don't know how McLeod's going to be. Anthony Harris is pretty solid, and then you don't know what Kayvon Wallace is. But like in the second round, I actually had the Eagles taking Boogie Basham from Wake Forest. That just felt like a Howie pick. He's a guy who could go in the first round, but if he slides to 37, don't be surprised if we take him because we have Josh Sweat and we have Derek Barnett and we have BG. BG's getting up there. This might be his last year. Barnett and Sweat, I love them, but they've both been injured often. Yeah. And then Basham's a guy that can play inside, outside, and he's as clean a prospect as they come. Like, people have kind of been weighing like Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, and Boogie Basham, like the 3 of those. Like, what do you want? Like, Basham's the safest by far. Kwity Paye has crazy upside, just not a lot of production. And Jalen Phillips has a bunch of upside and not as much production. So it's kind of a toss-up. But that I went on a tangent after talking about Rondell Moore. I mean, I love Rondell Moore. I wouldn't take him in the second round at where we are. Let's say we move back, or in the third, we have 2 picks. He falls there. I mean, he is an elite athlete.
He's more meant in like fantasy outlook, but because he's just crazy high in our dynasty league on him. But no, I know I've kind of tossed you all around the place, kind of pulling you off some topics on some others. But I appreciate you diving into that. And to touch briefly on the safeties, on my first mock in the 5th and 6th rounds, I was kind of flirting with the idea of either Paris Ford or Christian Uphoff for some later safety talent. And in my first mock was really on the whole premise of Jonathan Gannon lives up to that secondary developer as the guy that can get the most out of those players. So I was kind of picking safety specifically in the later rounds, hoping that you can get some guys. Like I said, you can't teach size, you can't teach speed. You get guys that are big body, fast guys that might be a little more raw, that Jonathan Gannon can get his hands on and work into serviceable starters. But no, that was some pretty incredible knowledge you just gave us up there about some guys that you'd really like for the Birds day 2. But to kind of touch briefly on what I said with Ramondre Stevenson, what are your thoughts on them drafting kind of that second 1-2 punch guy? And if you do kind of like the idea of them taking a day 2 or day 3 running back, who do you have in your short list?
Man, I mean, I've even had mocks with us taking Javonte Williams at 37.
Wow.
Because last year at 53, they mistook Dobbins.
I was
like
reading that.
That's a legit report. Like, they, even with Miles Sanders coming off as a rookie, they were considering taking Dobbins. And this year's weird because they just re-signed Jordan Howard, they re-signed Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders is coming back. And I think he's going to have a new expanded role with the new offense coming in. But that being said, it's tough because if a guy like Javonte Williams, even like if a Najee Harris or Travis Etienne fell to 37, you're going to start sweating and you're going to think about it.
Yeah.
That being said, for this team, you probably want to take a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who I love. I mean, he was great at Oklahoma and he was really good at the Senior Bowl. There's a lot of running backs that I like. Trey Sermon's really good. He just has his health concerns.
Yeah.
One guy who I'm really interested in the Eagles taking late is Demetric Felton from UCLA. He plays slot receiver and he plays running back. He's kind of like a Curtis Samuel, but a little bit faster. I mean, he's a guy that when you talk about multipliers, he's one of those guys. He's a guy that you can take as a slot receiver, but can also touch the ball in the backfield. He's like kind of like a Marlon Mack, but he can catch the ball a lot better. And that's exactly what Nick Sirianni is going to be looking for. So and same with Amari Rodgers. Those are two guys that can play running back, play slot receiver, and they're multipliers as football players. But overall, we're talking about day 3, and people like shake their head. They're like, because some people even stop watching the draft after the first and second rounds. I mean, look at day 3: Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, David Bakhtiari, Dak Prescott, Chris Harris Jr., Jason Kelsey. I mean, look at the Eagles team. I mean, I know people shake their head at him, but like Jalen Mills is a 7th-round pick. He added so much value to this team. I know like everyone's like, oh, but like he wasn't that great. I'm like, dude, as a 7th-round pick, he had a great career here, and he stepped up big when we needed him. So I get it. People want to have like the elite of the elites, but like if you're getting a 7th-round pick and he ends up being a starter for your team for multiple years and you win a Super Bowl with him, you have to tip your cap to him. And obviously Bill Belichick saw something to give him that type of contract. One guy that I really like, we talk about value. I mean, I mentioned Austin Watkins later in day 3 and DJ Daniel, but Jalen Darden, I picked him in my mock draft. I mean, the dude had 133 yards per game. Jamar Chase said he's the best receiver that he's worked with in the offseason when they're at Exos together in Arizona. And the craziest stats, he had 26 touchdowns from the slot since 2019, and it's 8 more than the next closest receiver.
Wow.
And it's like you like guys like Greg Ward, like I said earlier, but if you can get a Jalen Darden in like the 6th round, he's gonna start over Greg Ward. Like it's not even close. If you get Amari Rodgers in like the 4th round, he's gonna start over Greg Ward. That's why like you like those receivers, but I think the only receiver that is actually a lock to have a starting job next year is Jalen Reagor, because Greg Ward could easily be replaced. Travis Fulgham got blocked out by Alshon Jeffrey, not to a fault of his own, but like these aren't guys that were financially invested in with Ward and Fulgham. Like if they didn't happen to take Jalen Waddle or like Devonta Smith or any of the other tier 2 receivers that we talk about, like those guys are going to see the field over the other guys that are veterans on our team. It's tough to say, but there's a ton of guys that you like. I mean, there's guys that I really like Chase Barrett. I interviewed him for West Virginia, and he's saying like, I'm important because you can take me in the 5th or 6th round and I can play tackle, guard, center. I can play all sides. He started all 9 games for West Virginia this year at center, allowed 0 sacks. And that's a guy whose name you don't even hear about.
No.
And it just shows you like there's value to be had all over the draft, especially because of COVID, because teams and scouts, they're so flustered over like the first couple of rounds. They're not even focusing on some of these late round guys that there's going to be so many draft diamonds in this draft, because the Eagles with so many picks, 123 through 240, like that's where you're going to get the guys that are going to fill out the bottom of the roster. Because the Eagles team, like people don't realize, if you look at the roster, it's not good. And when you hear Nick Sirianni talk about like competition, don't worry about Jalen Hurts. He's the quarterback, but like the other guys, they're gonna have to compete for jobs, because you give 4-win season, no one's job's safe. It's like maybe like Fletcher Cox and some other vets, but everyone else is gonna have to battle for their positions and their jobs. So all these guys are gonna come in hungry in the league, like all these guys later in the draft and the day 3 guys, and they could beat out the starters from last year.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. We got a bunch of picks at that 123 and on, and Well, if you look back at our record of drafting Pro Bowl talent and all, it's pretty slim. But you can find a number of day 3 players that you'd say had pretty good Eagles careers or are still on the team. I've been pretty vocal that I wasn't a huge Jalen Mills guy, but in the same breath, I always finished like, but being a 7th round pick, he was a win. Like, I don't want him as a guy you build a defense around, but being a guy that we got at the end of day 3, you can't say it wasn't a win. You can hate the finger wag, you can hate that he's beat on the double move, but the guy was, his best ability was his versatility. He could line up anywhere in the secondary and do an okay job. And sometimes in some games he did a well, over okay job. But you get guys, Jack Driscoll. I was with you. I hated the tackle out of Auburn getting picked up. I was with my little brother's a big Auburn fan, and so I kind of looked at him right when that pick came in, and I was like, "You watched all the games. I only watched a handful. Like I know a little bit about this guy." And he was like, "No, this guy is a stud. Like he's going to be somebody that can develop under the right coaching into a really serviceable player." And so it was tough seeing him go, but you get those later round offensive linemen, somebody that can play all across the line, tackle, guard, center, and you have depth. You can see how quickly you lose a starter on the O-line and your season's over. You got guys like Jamon Brown playing out there, just as a turnstile. Or you can get a serviceable backup in the later rounds to fill out the bottom of your roster, and the season's not over. Not that I expect them to be really competitive next year, but in the years moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Prince Tega a little bit ago. That's a guy that it sucks that we lost him. I don't even know if he's signed right now because it's crazy. I feel terrible for him. Tampa Bay let him go the week of the Super Bowl, so he didn't. So I don't think he got a ring.
Jeez.
And it's like one of those guys. Like, why would you not keep him? Because I think the biggest thing with the changing of the coaching staff, it sucks that we lost Deuce and all these other people, but dude, Jeff Stoutland stayed. He turned down Alabama to stay here. Having that guy here makes me feel 100 times better about this season and moving on. I would pay him whatever you need to pay him. I would make sure he has the front row, the parking spot in front of NovaCare and the link. Jeff Stoutland is easily one of the most important pieces of the Eagles franchise in history. I mean, look at what he did for Big V to allow him to get ready for the playoff run after Peters went down. Look at how he's managed Brandon Brooks on and off the field with his issues. I mean, even Lane Johnson. It's but you saw how Driscoll and Herbig stepped up in the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
But the holy grail of it all, Jordan Mailata. It's people don't realize that everyone's like Harry Roseman, he does this and that, but I don't even know if he was a Harry Roseman pick or the scouts were just pushing for it. We'll figure it out one day. But Jordan Mailata is literally the holy grail of the NFL draft because I've not seen a really bad rep from Jordan Mailata starting at left tackle, and he's been going against some of the best defensive ends in the league. Yeah. That's why it's crazy to me that the fact that it's dude, it's not his job to lose. Andre Dillard should not touch the field at left tackle until he proves that he's better than Jordan Mailata. And let's say that we drafted a left tackle like Slater or Darisaw or Vera Tucker. It's I get it, but I don't know if that's the move right now because I was listening to Lane Johnson interview with Chris Long, and Chris Long was yo, what's going on with Mailata? And Lane Johnson's dude, that kid doesn't even realize how good he is or how good he's going to be. He's the real deal. And when you hear Lane Johnson talk about him and then you see on film how good he is, Jordan Mailata, he's the only reason why Hurts and Carson Wentz weren't taken out on stretchers last year.
He just throws people around.
Jason Peters was terrible last year.
Oh my gosh, bless his heart.
Yeah, it almost seemed like we were trying to throw games when we put Peters and Alshon back out there. But you find guys like that in the draft, and that's how I felt with Prince Tega one ago because he only fell because of the medical red flags that weren't even real. It was just so close to the draft that he fell, and that's why a guy like Chase Barrett for me is if you can get that, he's a multiplier. He can play all positions, and he's a late round guy, and that's what the draft's all about this year. You get your Amari Rodgers, you get your Chase Barrett, you get your Demetric Felton. Like, you just get guys that can do multiple things, and that's what we really need. You need to hit on all these draft picks. Like, obviously, the one thing I want to mention is, like, you want to hit, like, I don't mind moving back from 6 to 12, but the 4th round pick that recouped, you have to hit on that. And then next year with the 1st round pick, you have to use that to move up in some value, or just hit on that pick. And one thing I want to ask you about, because there's all this buzz going on, what do you think about the Eagles potentially taking a quarterback? Because there's a lot of noise and smoke surrounding that right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen specifically today, you're hearing Justin Fields is a guy the Eagles are connected to. I don't know. I've been on record plenty of times saying what I saw last year from Hurts was above average mobility and below average to maybe average decision-making, arm strength, and accuracy. But I've also, been on the same breath saying he's doing everything you want to see a guy do. He's working with experts in, accuracy, in decision-making, and going through his progressions rather than, the first guy's not open, boom, I'm going to take off with my feet. So I wish him nothing but the most success. I am a little hesitant to be like, he's shown me enough in this offseason workout tapes to say he's fixed all those issues. I don't know. Like you said at the very beginning of this, next year's quarterback class is weak. There's always the possibility that they use these picks to go after a veteran if Hurts doesn't work out. I'm hoping he can come out there and completely lock down the job and shut down any idea and concept of bringing somebody else in. It's so hard.
Yeah.
If Justin Fields, I don't think there's a chance he falls to 12, but if he gets past 8, do you call up?
That's the one thing, though. Atlanta holds all the cards for.
Yeah.
Not only this year, I think whoever Atlanta picks, that sets the snowball of like how every single, like, a bunch of things in the NFL. I mean, people talk about drafts in the past that have shaped the entire league. This is going to be one of them, because if Atlanta is like, okay, Matt Ryan's getting up there, let's take Justin Fields, or let's say Trey Lance or Mac Jones falls to there, like, that changes the draft. And if they take Kyle Pitts, that means 2 quarterbacks are going to be falling. And who's right after them? Cincy, they don't need a quarterback. Yeah. Who's after them? Miami, they don't need a quarterback. Who's at 7? Carolina.
Those Lions.
They're Lions. I mean, do they need a quarterback? Are they going to draft someone to be behind Jared Goff? That's 50-50. Even if they do, it goes to Carolina. They just traded for Darnold, and they still have Teddy Bridgewater on the team. Do they take a quarterback? Denver might need a quarterback too, but do they value the picks more? And Eagles and Harry Roseman, they're enamored with quarterbacks. So if they see one of the 2 guys sliding to them, are they gonna move up? It's really 50-50. People are like completely convinced. I don't know if it's out of love for Jalen Hurts or if it's just they're hoping it doesn't happen. They're like, there's no way that they're gonna get a quarterback. It's like,
I don't think there's no way at all.
Don't know, because anyone, like, people I've talked to, friends like in the front office, they've been like, it's pretty up in the air about what's going on right now. And people are like, why would they move back from 6 to 12 if why wouldn't they just stay at 6 if they're going to take a quarterback? I'm like, because they didn't know a month ago how Justin Fields was going to slide, because right now I think Trey Lance is completely penned in to go 3rd, because like, maybe they do take Mac Jones, and that I think that they initially did think that's what reports were saying, and that's what I've heard from people. But I think that if they really wanted Mac Jones, they wouldn't have moved up to 3. They would have maybe gotten close, but not specifically to 3, because Lance is the guy with the upside that people are gonna want to take at 3. One thing though, and like, it's one of those things where like I don't know why I've gotten bunched into the most people don't think so, but like some people think I'm like completely pro Wentz for everything. It's like, no, like, I've been critical of him a lot. I've said he sucks when he sucks. When he's good, he's good. And people think, like, if I'm saying like Jalen Hurts isn't quarterback 1, then it's like, that's just because you like Wentz. It's like, no, like, I've been a huge Jalen Hurts fan since he was a freshman at Alabama. I watched him in high school, and it's one of those things where like every single person you talk to, like rival schools, rival teams now, everyone loves Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy that you were praying that he was like a perfect prospect because he is the perfect person. Like, Jalen Hurts is a hard worker. He's dedicated. Like, he's a dedicated to the community, to the craft, and he's a great dude. But there's a reason why he wasn't a first-round pick. I've talked to people that are Oklahoma fans. I've talked to people that are Alabama fans. I've talked to different scouts. I've watched a ton of film on him. Like, there's things he does really well, but there's more things that he does wrong than well,
Exactly.
and that's how you fall into the second round and almost the third round. But that's the thing, though. What you are in college isn't what you are in the NFL. That being said, I saw a lot of the same issues in the NFL that he had in college, and that's why we're here. And it's kind of weird, though, because I don't know if you remember this. When Carson Wentz was working out in the offseason with coaches, the Eagles freaked out at him. I don't know if you remember this. There's a whole article. It's like Kyra Roseman and Doug Peterson saying, like, we don't want like Carson to get tainted by like outside sources. But then when Jalen does it, it's like they're advertising as much as they can. They're pushing it. And like, I don't care. I'm just happy that he's doing it. But I just thought it was like so bizarre, though. And it's like, it was like a weird like PR thing. But that's the thing with Jalen, though. Like, he's going to be the first one in, last one out. Locker room's going to gravitate towards him because dude's just like he's just a ball of positive energy. Like, I love Jalen Hurts. He's awesome. And that's why, like, I didn't want to move back from 6th. And the reason why is because I was like, if you can get Pitts or Chase, like, you do that because then that gives you a chance to put Jalen Hurts in the best position to succeed, and then you don't have to worry about a quarterback. And if he had Jamar Chase, or he had Kyle Pitts, and then he fails, and everyone else in the offense looks good, but he like continues to turn the ball over, or his arm just isn't what you need to be, then it's him. That's why it's tough because let's say like the wide receivers don't look very good, and he does all he can, but it's like maybe you can improve at the quarterback position. Then you're right back to where we are now, and it's a land of confusion. And that's why the Eagles want to have those first round picks next year. But it's a weird spot because I'm all in. I've been all in for helping Jalen. That's why Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts were so intriguing to me. Now that we're back at 12, it's like I kind of just want to take JC Horn because and some people are like, I don't know. It's like, I'm hoping he's there. Like, I'm hoping he gets by Dallas because the nightmare is that Dallas takes him, because not only would that be a good pick, it would be the smart pick because like their offense has enough already, and they need a cornerback like Surtain or Smith.
No, 100%. And I think we share a lot of the same concerns about Jalen Hurts. You can't say enough about the guy as a person, but we all saw what we saw last year. And I've always been a little bit confused by how many people on social media and all are just saying like, no, Jalen Hurts can do no wrong. Like, he is going to be a Pro Bowler like his first year as a full starter. I'm like, what were you watching? Like, yeah, he was exciting. The team got like a jolt from him stepping in there. But were we watching the same game? Like, this guy was inaccurate. He had the same problem Wentz had with dropping the ball. He did have an interception problem, even though it wasn't as worse as his fumble problem, and he didn't go through his progressions well enough. Sure, the offensive line was in shambles. Maybe a healthy offensive line in a full offseason that's not insanely marred by COVID, he's able to go through, his reads and go through the plays a little more confidently. But I didn't see anything that said, without a doubt, no way you don't take a quarterback. It leaves that question mark that if like you said, the Falcons make a move that shapes the rest of the draft and a guy like Fields starts sliding, or if for some reason the Niners do go with Mac Jones, which I think would be the wrong move, but a guy like Trey Lance starts falling, I think especially in Philadelphia they would be completely opposed to another North Dakota State guy. But they start moving past that 6, 7, 8 spot. I could completely see the Eagles moving up and taking a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields. Whether it's what I want them to do or not, I would lean towards no, but not 100%. But I don't think it's even close to out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. We both agree there. It's one of those things where it's like you don't have a shot at a Super Bowl anymore in today's NFL without a franchise quarterback. And it's one of those things where like Howie Roseman will want as many shots at a franchise quarterback, and that's why he's so intrigued at taking a Justin Fields or even a Trey Lance if he falls to them. And people just take it too personal when like you try to talk about Jalen Hurts. It's like, dude, I love Jalen Hurts. Like he's awesome. Yeah. I was excited to have him as a player and a person on our team, but it was like one of those things. Like it made no sense because you had Carson Wentz. It was one of those things like what are you doing? It's like when the Packers took Jordan Love, and it's like what are you doing? And I hate when people compare those two things. And I love when I think it was Chris Long was talking about that. He's like, people are like, oh, like, well, Aaron Rodgers had such a great season after Jordan Love, and like Carson Wentz had like the worst season. It's like, yeah, because Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, man. Yeah. And like, look at the teams. Like you have a great line in Green Bay, and you have Devontae Adams, and you have a balanced run game. Here, it was like we would run the ball like 4 times and a half. You didn't have an established number one receiver, and it was just like it's Aaron Rodgers. Like and he's already completely established as a Hall of Fame, like Super Bowl MVP. Like he doesn't care. Like, cool, you didn't draft your wide receiver, you're idiots, but I'm still gonna go do my job. For Wentz, it was completely different, and it was coming off of the controversy after another controversy with getting hurt in the playoff game. And the thing with Jalen Hurts, though, it's just like I think the kid can do enough and beyond if he keeps progressing. I mean, but like we were saying, we saw the same issues that you saw at Oklahoma and Alabama, and it's one of those things where can he break bad habits that Carson Wentz couldn't break for himself, obviously. But I think Jalen Hurts is going to have the team behind him, and that's why it would be really interesting to see what happens if they drafted a quarterback. Like, what would the locker room do if Hurts stayed on the roster? Yeah. And I think it would be really interesting to see what would happen. I mean, that could be something that could rally the team around Jalen Hurts, or it could, but then will the rookie feel isolated? Like that's the scary part, because you don't have an established culture and system with the coaching. So like it could completely implode in your head. Like you could take the right guy, like Justin Fields. Like let's say we move up to 8, we get Justin Fields, and he's like a lights out guy, but people are like, oh, like, but we just screwed over another quarterback. Like, what's going on? Like, is that going to happen to me? Like, I'm not even a quarterback. If you're like a position player, like, I'm not even the quarterback. Like, what's going to happen to me? Like, it's a really weird gray area. And this is what happens when you go have a 4-win season, especially in a big market city with the fans like they are here. But there's a lot of potential. I mean, we talked about all these big names in the draft, and it's going to be exciting. And the reason why we love the draft is because potential. It's the potential to go from what you are to what you can be if done right.
Oh, yeah. So, one last thing to touch on what we were just talking about with Jalen Hurts and all. If they are to go with another quarterback, what do you think they do with Hurts? Do they keep him? Do they try to, dump him off to Houston, a team that, has so many questions right now with quarterback? Or what are your thoughts real quick before we wrap up?
I think if they did select another quarterback, I think that they would keep Hurts. The only way that they would get rid of Hurts is if he pulled a Wentz and said, I want to go somewhere else. Like, this is BS. Like, I shouldn't have to deal with this. Like, I want to go somewhere else because all you're doing is stunning my growth. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you got rid of your guy so I could be the guy, but then you bring in another guy. It's like, I can see why he went crazy. But I think he would stay. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a competitor. I feel like he would not want to quit on the guys in the locker room that they're the rookie group. Like they came in together, and they're pretty tight knit. And even the vets love Jalen Hurts. Like we said, like everyone does. He's just a great guy, and he's a hard worker, and you can't really root against him. I think he'd stay though, and I think that Howie would want him to stay, obviously, because then you have 2 shots at a quarterback. I mean, and not comparing the two situations, but like when you had RG3 and you had Kirk Cousins, it's like everyone's like, Kirk Cousins is never going to play. Like he's never going to touch the field. And then you saw what happened. And now Kirk Cousins is still playing and RG3 is barely playing. And it's one of those things where like you never know. Like injuries happen. Some guys step up. And with Jalen Hurts, it's like you hope for the best for him. And you're hoping that the new systems coming in with the coaches is going to completely elevate him and everyone around him. And it really starts with the line staying healthy. That's number one. That's the big thing. Like, the system could even be the same as last year, but if the line is healthy, we have a really good line. And you got to make sure that you have depth behind that too. And then Miles Sanders has to stay healthy because you need that balanced running game. I mean, you saw what Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack before he got hurt, and Naheem Hines did in Indianapolis with Nick Sirianni. It's crucial, and that's why we bounced the idea of taking another running back this year, because you need that. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was barely used until the middle of the year, but then you saw how amazing that guy is. And Miles Sanders is awesome. I think he's a way better ball catcher than he showed last year. I don't know what happened when he just started dropping the ball like crazy last year.
Yeah, I talked about that like 2 episodes ago, just how he is a good ball catcher as a running back, and last year isn't reflective of the true versatile running back that he really is.
Yep.
Well, no, Chris, I can't thank you enough for the time. I mean, the information and the knowledge that you were able to share was absolutely incredible. You know, there's a reason why you are where you are, and it really shows just in the little over an hour I've had to talk with you. It's been a real treat, and I know all my listeners are really going to love it. So thank you, man. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, looking forward to the draft and seeing what happens. I can't really think of the last time there was so much mystery surrounded around what direction they may go in. But like you said, there's a ton of potential to hit on some guys late and to get it right even early. So could be exciting.
Yeah, it should be a big night. I mean, 11 picks, and especially with a team that had 4 wins last year, like, you're just hoping that this is the floor, and we're gonna finally experience the ceiling. Maybe not next year, but it's soon. Especially, it's exciting. New coaching staff, so let's just see what happens. Let's see if we can turn the tide.
Oh yeah, I'm all about it, man. Well, I'm going to be putting all your information on the in the description. You can see your handle there. Everybody, be sure to go. Follow him on social media. He's going to be bringing out some incredible content. I'm sure during the draft and afterwards. And the 4th and John team over there just consistently brings just top-notch, top-tier content. So be sure to go and listen to everything that they have to say, because you're never going to be disappointed in hearing all their stuff that they share. So thank you again, brother.